the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 136. I'm Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. This week, we're continuing what's become an annual tradition of having Golden Gopher Athletic Director Mark Coyle on with us to preview the opening week of college football and much more. There's so much to talk about. We'll hit on as much as we can with the Golden Gopher Athletic Director. Our Go Gopher Podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union is also a big sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast. Life math is complicated, and Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union makes it easier with a local financial expert available to help in person or virtually. Go to affinityplus.org/Go Gophers for more info. They have an award-winning mobile app, so check that out as well. Longtime Gopher sports supporter Cub is a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast. In a hurry? Don't worry. Cub delivers. Get fresh meat, produce, everyday essentials, and more delivered to your door. Cub is the official grocer of the Golden Gophers and proud to support Gopher athletics for over 20 years. We're podcasting episode 136 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We invite you to subscribe to the Go Gopher Podcast. It's free to do so. You can also go back and listen to previous Go Gopher Podcast. Last week, for example, we heard from Gopher volleyball coach Keegan Cook, whose team will open the regular season this weekend in Milwaukee, taking on Stanford and Texas. There's still a lot of timely stuff in last week's episode, so if you haven't listened yet, please go back and do so. This week, we're chatting Gopher Athletics with Minnesota Athletic Director Mark Coyle, who will join me next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
Fire up the grill. Labor Day is here and we're celebrating with big deals on your favorite foods at Cub. This week, 80% lean ground beef is $2.99 per pound, sold in a 3-pound package limit 2. Whole seedless watermelons are $3.99 each. And Pepsi, Coca-Cola, or 7-Up 12-packs are $3.98 each when you buy 4 with MyCub Rewards at checkout. MyCub Rewards members save more. Sign up to start earning fuel rewards and exclusive savings at checkout. See store for details.
It's episode number 136, and back for a 5th time on our podcast is Golden Gopher Athletic Director Mark Coyle, and it's kind of become an annual tradition on the opening week of football season for you to stop in and join us, and great to see you, and summer's over and football's here.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Obviously, we're excited to have the football game coming up this week, which is phenomenal. Great opponent in North Carolina, and it's nice to see our other sports get started. Soccer's off to a 2-0 start. I've had a chance to watch them play twice, and volleyball gets going here in Milwaukee, in a week. So it's a lot of cool things going on.
Yeah, no doubt. Always busy, always stuff going. I just saw Mills over at 3M Arena at Mariucci, and he's like, yeah, it's game week. And they're running around getting, people forget all the work that goes into, you've worked all summer, but now the real stuff happens.
And you've heard me talk about this before, Mike. I think I wish people could just see, we have over 275 full-time employees, and I wish people could see how excited they are, the amount of work they put in there. You see it because you're here every day. People take great pride in what they do. They take so much pride representing Minnesota. They want to make sure we put on a good performance for all that. And I'm not, the student athletes obviously want to do that. So do the coaches, but so does the staff. So it's good to see our staff working so hard and have a chance to celebrate it on Thursday night with the football game.
And here's the thing people also don't realize, you have 275 full-time employees, but the as we move further and further into this new age, there's probably a workload that you could use 500, right? I mean, people are really working hard here to accomplish what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, people are working hard. You know, Pat Forty, the writer for Sports Illustrated, made a comment a few years ago, and he said Minnesota might be the most resourceful athletic program in the country in terms of what we accomplish with our budget, with our staff, those type of things. And we take great pride in that. I think it's that low ego, high output mentality. Yeah. And we've got great people, great staff. But with the changing landscape of college athletics, we could double our staff tomorrow. With revenue share, with back payments on the House and Oliver settlement, NIL. I mean, there's a million different ways we could go on this conversation. Yeah. So there's no doubt. But again, I take great pride. Our staff, anytime we ask people to take on additional work, they take it on. They do a great job. And again, they're just really proud to represent this institution and the people of Minnesota.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So thoughts on the football team. What do you think? You've seen fall camp, and we're ready to see them against the Tar Heels Thursday. Yeah.
Well, the great time about this year is you're undefeated, right? Yeah. Nobody's played a game with the exception of a few teams that opened up this past weekend in week 0. But, obviously, I give PJ a lot of credit because I think it goes back to, and PJ would be the first to tell you, I would be the first to tell you, last year 5-7, not the regular season we wanted to have, but the importance of bowl games is they're kind of a springboard to the new season, the next year, and getting that win against Bowling Green just kind of brought an uplift to our program. You're there, you see how the kids respond, you see how the coaches respond, how our fans respond, and as we walked into camp, I think we could have had 17 kids were able to leave the program if they wanted to. 16 of them stayed. And that's awesome. That's a result of PJ and his coaching staff and the culture they've created there. That's a result of our great fans and their participation with Dingytown athletes. And so I think we have a very mature group coming back. I think up front, offensively and defensively, we're going to be very mature. And as you know, that's a big part of college football, especially in the Big Ten, especially how the Big Ten has changed with the 4 new additions, and we'll play 2 of them this year on that side of it. But again, I'm excited to play. I think we're athletic. I think we're going to catch people by surprise this year. I don't think we're getting much love in the preseason polls, which is fine. What I love about college athletics is you got to play the games, right? And so we'll find out on Thursday. We play a really good North Carolina team who returns a lot of starters as well. We went down there last year and they beat us. They had the great quarterback. They've got a new transfer quarterback, Brad Johnson's son, who I assume will be the starting quarterback. So it's going to be a huge test for us. We're hopeful fans come out, support us. But, here we go. We start here in 48 hours.
Yeah. I love this series, too. I think it's a great. I know before you got here, that was initially, and then it was scheduled, and then that thing got bought out. And then, how did this come about? I forget how this series was that you? And your staff?
Well, we have conversations, and I give PJ a lot of credit. I think I'm starting my 13th or 14th year as an athletic director, and I've always worked on the premise of that. I let head coaches tell me who they would like to play, and people will contact me, and if a coach says, "Hey, I'm not sure I want to play Mike Grimm this week for whatever reason,"
nobody would.
Yeah, well played. But I get their feedback, and I say, "Well, I think it'd be a good game for our fans." Those type of things. Every conversation I have with PJ, he'll play anybody. He really will. I mean, he likes those opportunities. He was excited about North Carolina. Again, we did this deal probably 5-6 years ago, and Mac Brown is coming in. North Carolina has done a wonderful job. I think they've had 3 first-round NFL draft picks at quarterback alone at North Carolina. I mean, they've done a really good job there. As you know, we have Mississippi State coming up. We have Cal. We have Alabama coming up in a few years. We got Alabama as soon as we could get Alabama on the schedule. Not every coach is doing that, especially with the way the Big Ten has changed. And again, now, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, they're pretty good football teams. Yeah. And now we're going to be competing against them every year as well, right? So, but I give PJ a lot of credit. But this North Carolina series, I know their athletic director, Bubba Cunningham. He and I are on the men's basketball committee together. I've known Bubba for a long time. A great person. I know they're excited to play the game. They're excited to come up here. It's 2 programs that traditionally don't play each other, so it's nice to have these kind of matchups.
Yeah, I think last year was the first time the Gophers have ever played a true road game against an ACC team, which boggled my mind at the time. And
think about that.
Yeah, crazy, right? Yes. I mentioned it a few times, and Guardsy was like, okay, we've heard it, we know. But that's how mind-boggling to me that was. Yeah. And I think the Mississippi State road game coming up I think there's only been 1 or 2 matchups on the road when we get to there. Yeah. I'll be a senior citizen when that gets here, but when we get there, I'll probably have that number. But I think it's good to have some of those matchups. And the North Carolina matchup's good because I think either team can beat either team. A loss isn't a killer. Like fans aren't, oh, how'd you lose that game if you lose it? And if you win it, it's a nice feather in your cap.
Yeah, it's a good win. And again, as we talked about the bowl game and the uplift it gave our program at the end of the year, you play a really good team like North Carolina. Again, people understand they're a quality program. They go to bowl games just like we go to bowl games. And it's a great matchup for us. And again, I know PJ and the student athletes are excited to get going. We're excited to get going. So it should be a great atmosphere on Thursday.
You are a former college football player. You're a wide receiver at Drake. You won a high school state championship as a player, so you have played football. Do you watch practice with maybe a different eye when you watch football because of your background in football than maybe other sports? And how do you watch a football practice when you're out there, say, for example, with this fall camp?
Well, I'm extremely jealous that I'm only 5'10" and 155 pounds, and I see the wide receivers that we have. And you watch those guys and they compete. I am absolutely amazed. Mike, I go back to you and I both grew up in Iowa, and I did my undergrad at Drake University, and I went to grad school and got a master's in sports administration. And when I went to Florida State, I worked. My job was to work in the ticket office as an intern, and during the game I could go on the field. And I remember when Charlie Ward was down there as a quarterback, and then great NBA player with the Knicks for a long time, but people forget he was a college football quarterback too.
Heisman Trophy
winner, and Florida State was ranked in the top 5 of the country. And I'm watching Florida State play Miami live, and I remember seeing how big those dudes were, how quick those dudes were, and just what a different level it is. And I think, and again, you're around our program. Look how different our team is from 5 years ago. Yeah. Just the depth, the strength, the speed, the athletic ability. It's a total picture. So when I watch any practice, whether it be football or hockey or basketball or volleyball, I go to volleyball practices and watch them. I like to watch the teams practice and get to know the kids. I'm just amazed at how their skill level and the things they can do and how fast they are. And like remember when Rashad Bateman, when Rashad was around here, remember how he would glide and everybody else was running as fast as they could, and Rashad you just see those kids at that level and you're like, okay, that kid's different, right? And that's what really intrigues me. So I feel like when I do watch football, you can look at our O-line. I talked about our O-line, our D-line. I think up front, we're going to catch people off guard. Yeah. I think, Coach Nichols done a great job with those kids in the offseason. Winston's done an unbelievable job on the defensive side. Coach Callahan on the offensive side. I mean, we look really good. The skill position, I think we're going to catch people off guard. Obviously running back, Darius, some of our other running backs have come in, Max at quarterback. I feel really good about our program. And again, I think, we talk, PJ and I, when I say we, PJ and I have had a million conversations about, how do you become a tough out? And again, I want to beat Iowa more than anybody. Right, I want to beat Nebraska more than anybody. I want to beat Wisconsin more than anybody. I have a lot of respect for those programs because they're tough outs. Mm-hmm. They don't beat themselves. How many times have we watched Iowa over the years, right? And again, you and I grew up down there for 40 years. They're a tough out. And if Minnesota can become a tough out, to me, that's when you've made it as a football program. And I feel like PJ has built our program where we are becoming a tough out, where we don't beat ourselves. We're competitive, and every game you have an opportunity, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, for sure. Ticket-wise, we were recording this on Tuesday. The game's Thursday. I think it's approaching a potential sellout, a gold out. Last year, what an atmosphere with Nebraska in town. How close we getting, and do we think we can pull it off here?
I think I encourage people, to go to gophersports.com, order those tickets. I think we're really, really close to a sellout. I'm hopeful that we can announce a sellout. And, I can tell you, Mike, the game's on national TV Fox. Mm-hmm. Commissioner Batiti of the Big Ten, this was his first football game last year as commissioner of the Big Ten, and he had a chance to come to the game. He still talks about his experience, the gold out, the fans. He was completely blown away by what he saw. And he's actually going to be here on Thursday because of last year. He's going to come back for the opener. We're excited to have him back in town. So, again, our Gopher fans will be there loud. And again, get your tickets now, but we're hopeful that we will have a sellout for Thursday. 18-team
Big Ten conference, as you mentioned, with the 4 West Coast schools coming in. I think with football, it's fine. It's a once-a-week deal, right, travel-wise. I do look at the schedules, and they're unbalanced. There's no divisions, and we don't have to go down that road because I think, eventually that will solve itself. I don't know if we'll always have divisions. Heck, there could be new teams by this time next year. Who knows the way things go and stuff's in court and different things. But that said, travel-wise, I was looking at the Rutgers schedule. We go out there. That's for us, it seems like a long trip. USC has to travel to Piscataway. That's one of their, whatever it is, 9 home games or whatever they have out there. And boy, those West Coast teams are going to be challenged, I think, aren't they? Because every trip, I mean, even if people forget L.A., like USC playing at Washington, that's a pretty good jaunt up the coast. That's not like a 10-minute flight. And then everything else, if Lincoln's your next closest game, I wonder how the West Coast teams will adjust to that.
You know, as you were asking the question, you know, two thoughts came to mind. You know, the first thought is my first AD job was at Boise State. I was shocked at how long those road trips were just on the West Coast, like in the Mountain West Conference, right? San Diego, Las Vegas, you know, Colorado Springs. They're not a 45-minute flight.
Yeah. We kind of think, I think you lose track of geography, right?
It's so spread out west.
It's a lot of space.
It's a lot of space, a lot of mountains. You know, they're not quick flights. Like here in the Big Ten, in the past, we had quick flight, you know, 45 minutes. Big Ten's
an hour usually.
Hour
right,
flight. We go to Michigan, we're in Ann Arbor, we're in East Lansing, we're in Columbia.
Purdue,
like they're quick trips, right? And so, and then the second thing, you know, I remember when I got to Boise State, we were in the Big East Conference for about 15 minutes in football, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to Chris Peterson, the coach there who went on to Washington, and talking with Coach Pete. You know, we just talked about what was it going to be like traveling back east to play these games, and we felt like, you know, it's a big lift, it's a big ask, right? And if you think about you know, what these programs are going to have to do, you know, think about when we played out at Oregon State a few years ago, or we played out at Fresno State.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a heck of a trip.
Heck of a trip out there, right? And then we play the game at night, and then you and I are getting in our cars at 7 in the morning.
Going to Al's breakfast.
That's Sunday in the morning, right?
Yes.
And so I think it's going to be interesting. And I give Commissioner Petiti, Kerry Kinney, AJ Eads with the Big Ten, I give them a lot of credit because they're aware of that, and they're trying to be very strategic in how they do the scheduling, because I think it's going to be interesting to see what, you know, again, USC's USC. They're a really good football team, right? Oregon's going to be a really good football team. I don't know how it's going to impact them, but it's going to be different, right? Yeah. And when you have to fly back east 3 or 4 times, now you're in October, November. We all love living in the Midwest, but the weather's a little bit different out here than it is on the West Coast. I mean, it's just going to be different for them. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how those teams respond. I think it's going to be interesting to see how, you know, the teams in the traditional Big Ten, if you will, respond, having to fly out west and then come back and play. I mean, so I think it's going to be a lot of newness this year with the league, and I think we're going to gain a lot of information and see how it plays out in the future.
Sidebar, other sports, how do you think that's going to work? Because that all of a sudden can include weeknights. It can include, you know, various things. I'm thinking baseball, particularly if you're one of those, like if you're the USC baseball coach, you've been going to Tucson and Tempe and, you know, Stanford and Cal, and you've been playing in warm weather, and now you're coming to Siebert Field or to Rutgers or to Michigan. That's a different ballpark, no pun intended.
Yeah, we're excited to host them in April, early April.
Right.
I can tell you, Coach McDevitt is lining up to play USC in that time. You know, again, you know, the Big Ten, again, with football, you're on a charter. It's man, you can do it. You get on the plane, you're with us every week. We go, we come back. It's a pretty quick trip on that side of it. With the basketball programs, those teams might have to go out there twice during a year from the Midwest. But if you think about, we would usually schedule a West Coast, you know, like you and I were in Dana Point, California a few years ago. You and I have been down, you know, this year we're down in Orlando. So we've talked to our coaches about, for our non-conference schedules, maybe to be a little bit more regional, and then you save those West Coast trips. And if you think softball, baseball, we would normally go out to the West to get some early season games in there. I think you'll see the Big Ten do that. We'll take advantage of the weather early in the season to go out on the West Coast. And then as the weather starts to turn and get a little bit better here, have those teams come back this way. So I think the Big Ten will do a really nice job of managing that. You know, we all have missed class policy schedules, our policies in place on our campuses. So we'll have to be mindful of those. But again, I think it'll work out fine for everybody once we find that routine.
Tickets for the Gophers this Thursday, gophersports.com. Get in price at $30. A great deal, and it's approaching a sellout. It'd be great to see every seat full. A couple of quick notes. You mentioned women's soccer. You were at those 2 matches so far, 2-0. They go on the road. I think they're off to the state of Wisconsin as well this weekend. They might even play Thursday, I think. What do you see from that group?
Well, you know, we actually had a head coaches meeting this morning, a little bit earlier today, and I was telling all the coaches when I was at the game on Sunday, we scored 2 goals with our young ladies doing kicks behind their back to score the goal. It was, I don't know if you've seen the replay.
I did not see it. Yeah.
It is. I'm like, Aaron, if you can teach me how to do that, we got some really cool things going on. But you know, I wish our fans, you know, we have an unbelievable soccer stadium, Elizabeth Lyle Rive Stadium, and we get great crowds for soccer. If you have not been to a soccer game, you need to check it out. And what I love about my job, and again, college athletics is upside down right now. There's so many changes going on. But when we beat Creighton, we opened up with Creighton. We're down 1-0. First 5 minutes of the game, Creighton gets a goal. In the second half, we score 2. We win 2-1. If you could have seen the excitement of our team after just the hard work they put in over the summer, the lifting, the training, the academic work, the sports nutrition, all the things they do, just to see them get that win. And then Sunday was my shortest road trip ever. We played at St. Thomas and about 2 minutes from my house. So my wife and I, Kristen, went up there and watched that game. And again, to see the excitement with the win against St. Thomas was a good win for us. And now we go on the road this week again and play this week. And so again, really excited about soccer and Coach Chastain, and think we have a really good chance to make some really good noise in the Big Ten this year.
Cross country has always had a high bar. They've been very good, coming off some success with track on the women's side, especially last year. What do you see from cross country?
Well, Sarah Hopkins, Sarah's been our longtime female cross country coach, and a few years ago we made her our male and female cross country coach, and she's done a wonderful, wonderful job. And I'm not sure there's not a more competitive person in our department. Yeah. And I had a chance to meet with them. They went to fall camp. I met with them, I think, last Wednesday or Thursday. They go up to camp up in Ely and train for a few days, and then come back and they get going or whatever. And Sarah will be the first one. Last year we didn't have the results we wanted to have. We still make postseason. We still do a lot of cool things. But Sarah has that drive to compete at that highest level. And I think both our programs will have a chance to compete nationally at a very high level. And just really grateful for her work and the way she runs those programs.
Yeah, and they've got the Oz Memorial this weekend as we talk. And then, of course, down the road, not too far down the road, but down the road, the Roy Griak is one of the great events in the country in terms of cross country. And that's always
top teams in the country. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
And they got thousands. I mean, high schoolers, D3, D2 runners, and then high-level D1 runners as well. It's one of the great ones. And then volleyball Sunday against number 5 Stanford, Monday against the defending champion, top-ranked Texas in Milwaukee at the Milwaukee Bucks Stadium. That, I think, one of those games is on Big Fox, right? Regular Fox. And nothing like starting year 2 for Coach Cook swinging for the fences, right?
What I love, we talk, if you remember a few years ago, and I always refer to this, we had Jeremy Foley, who's the AD at Florida for a long time, and I think he's the AD Emeritus. I'm not sure what that means, but you and I need to get that title.
That's the job we all need. Yes.
But Jeremy, when I was at Kentucky working my way up, he took me under his wings, and he was so kind to me every time I would just kind of pick his brain and talk to him. And Jeremy, when he got to Florida, they were not Florida. And he gets to Florida. They won their first ever SEC football championship. Coach Donovan wins a couple national championships in men's basketball back-to-back. And then all of a sudden they became Florida, right? And they're actually struggling a little bit. If you watch Florida now, they're struggling a little bit. But what I love about Keegan and our volleyball program is that is a program that can compete for a national championship every year. And when you build a program like that, from our previous coaches to Keegan now, we have a group of kids that want to compete at the highest level. And you don't go out and play, no name. You go out and you play somebody, and they're playing somebody right away. So I give them a lot of respect. And I had a chance. We had an exhibition match against Iowa State this past weekend, and now it starts for real. I've had a chance to watch them practice, and I know Keegan's really excited about this team. We got great leadership, a great core group of players. So excited about this upcoming year and expect really good results.
Yeah, he was the guest last week on the podcast in episode 135. Always great to catch up. He's so thoughtful. You can tell he thinks. He's a thinker, and I love the podcast, and it's still pretty timely. If people want to go back, if they missed it last week, it's worth having a listen to. But I'm impressed with how he goes about his work.
Keegan might be our most thoughtful coach, and you've heard me talk before. Like, I think Dawn and PJ are incredibly intentional with everything they do. Keegan, I'm sorry, is so thoughtful in how he does things. And I remember I always joke with him. We interviewed him for the job when we were in Madison playing Wisconsin in football, and we won that day. So I feel like I need to talk to him every time we play Wisconsin. Not that I'm superstitious, but hey, Keegan, we're going to talk again. But I mean, just his thoughtful. And I remember, like, I'm literally going to do the pregame radio show with you guys, and I get off and I'm like, that dude is so thoughtful and surreal, how he thinks about things, how he looks at things. And it's interesting from his perspective because Washington was in the Pac-12. He coached there for 8 years, 8 NCAA tournaments, a Final Four appearance, and now they're in the Big Ten, right? So just that dynamic with him. So, but he's a good coach to have around for sure.
Yeah, I joked with him that he's got some institutional benefit. Maybe of all the coaches now in the Big Ten, he's the one that knows how to beat those other new teams coming in. So 100%. It should be interesting to see. I want to talk about Affinity Plus real quick here before we continue with Mark Coyle, as they are one of our great sponsors of the Go Gopher podcast and generally just a great supporter of Gopher athletics. Affinity Plus is your local credit union, proudly serving Minnesota since 19 1930. If you're a current Gopher student or a proud Gopher alum, that qualifies you to join this financial that wants to build a meaningful banking relationship and put you first. You can meet with a local employee at any of their branches statewide, including one right here near campus on University in Minneapolis. To learn more and find other ways to connect, here's their webpage. It's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA. People-centered banking, perfect for Gophers. Want to ask you real quickly, Mark Coyle with us here, episode 136. One of our all-time favorite Gophers, Casey O'Brien, this week went public with some heartbreaking kind of news that his cancer is back for now an 8th time. He has whipped it 7 times. Just an amazing story, an amazing inspiration. Remember that game out at Rutgers where he got to hold in that great 2019 season. So it's a GoFundMe page. Some of the traditional methods of treatment have kind of just become ineffective. So they're going to do some cutting edge, new age technology stuff that's not covered by insurance. So a GoFundMe page was started. 250,000 is the goal. As we talk here, it's about 1:30 on Tuesday. So it's not quite, let's see, it went public at 8 last night. So whatever that is, however many hours, 12 hours, whatever it is, they're at the 160,000. What a family, what a kid. And we need Gophers to back this.
100%. You know, I had a chance. I saw Casey a few weeks ago, and, you know, he is the ultimate champion. I mean, what that young man has gone through, the battles that he has fought, it puts so many things in perspective, right? And we get excited about playing North Carolina. We get excited about playing Stanford, about playing, you know, we can talk about all the teams. But at the end of the day, it's about people, and people make people successful. And you're not going to meet a finer person than Casey O'Brien. I mean, he is one of the all-time greats. His father, Dan, who worked here a long, long time with Coach Kill, with Coach Clays, was a wonderful person, is a wonderful person, and I would really encourage Gopher fans, anything you can do to support Casey. He needs our support. He needs our prayers. But again, you will not find a better person. And again, all of us here at Gopher Athletics are thinking about Casey, and we know he'll continue to fight, and he knows that he's got a lot of people behind him helping him with that fight.
He just won't quit, and we shouldn't either. We should keep pushing and give him every shot he's got, because if he's got a shot, he's going to do it.
Yes. You know, we say a lot around here, keep chopping, just meaning you just got to keep chopping every day. And he is the ultimate definition that he chops every day. And you were here, Mike. Remember, you know, when he was practicing with us, he might get some bad news. He's the first kid in the weight room. He's the first kid at practice. He's the last kid to leave the field. Everything he does is with his whole heart, conviction, all those type of things. And again, he's attacked cancer the same way. And like you, disappointed, shocked, sad when you saw the news that the cancer's back. But again, he needs us now more than ever. And I promise you, that kid has given us everything he can give us. And now it's time for Minnesota to give everything we have to him.
I mean, he spearheaded a $1 million fundraiser for the Children's Hospital on campus and raised it.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible.
Just out of college.
Just out of college.
Yeah. No, he again, you will not meet a better person. And again, I had a chance to spend some time with him a few weeks ago. And again, he needs us and everything he's done for this program, the way he's represented this program, the way his father, his mom, his family, Minnesotans need to step up and help Casey any way they can.
We've had a lot of fun times over the years in terms of watching different plays, and people ask me a lot, what's the favorite play you've called? And the Penn State touchdown gets mentioned a lot, and that is one of my favorite plays. But I do believe I got to be the only announcer in the history of football that his favorite play that he's ever called is a guy holding in an extra point, because that is my all-time favorite play.
Yeah,
right?
and again, not to get too deep, but just think about the symbolism of that play.
No doubt.
Right? I mean, everything that young man fought through, everything to get to that point. And again, simple minds just, well, it's just holding for an extra point.
Yeah.
But if you don't grasp the bigger meaning, and I give PJ a lot of credit, because PJ, as you know, he had talked about all year, we're going to figure out a way for Casey to play. He's earned that right. And again, we just didn't do it he earned the right to do that. And again, you know, if you just, to get to that moment, it's my favorite play. And I'm going on my 9th football season here at Minnesota. By far my favorite play, a simple extra point, but it wasn't a simple extra point. There were so many more things things there that took place. And the way PJ reacted, the way the kids reacted after the game in the locker room. Remember what the locker room was like after the game? I mean, it's just one of those moments. And again, those are the moments that we can all learn from. And again, those are the reasons why we need to step up and help out Casey and the O'Brien family any way we can.
Yep. Go to the GoFundMe, search Casey O'Brien. It'll pop up, and do what you can. Whatever. If it's $5, great. If it's $5,000, even better. But whatever you can do, they need it. And let's give this young man another chance to keep fighting here and keep fighting full steam ahead. It's a changing landscape, to say the least, right, in college sports, college athletics. I haven't even gotten here to the NIL portion of the podcast. And there's so many different avenues and peninsulas we can walk into and through, and alleys we can go down. The first thing I want to ask, because I think there's confusion, I don't fully understand it, is the number, the $21 or $22 million that we keep hearing that, okay, there's never been more money coming into everybody, right, for TV and everything. So everyone should think, oh, well, no problem. You got $21 million here, there. Yet you really got to be watching the budget here, right? I mean, there are some challenges here. So take me through what that $21 million does and how it impacts the rest of everything.
Okay, so what you're referring to, maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, there was an agreement, a settlement with what they call the House Oliver case. And what that was, that's where you hear about $2.8 billion in back payment to student athletes for 10 years. And so that's one part of the equation, and the judge is still finalizing that settlement on that side of it. And then as part of that agreement moving forward, institutions will have the opportunity to revenue share with student athletes. And that's where you hear the $22 million. And that's money that we have to generate. So, for example, our budget at Minnesota this year is $150 million. We're 14 out of 18 in the Big Ten. That's not a bad thing, but we're in the neighborhood. And that's what we always talk about. We don't have to have the biggest house. We just want to have a house in the neighborhood. And we're in the neighborhood, which is good. And so we are going to have to either save or generate new revenue to cover that $22 million that will start a year from now. And so institutions can opt in if they want to do this. So any Division I school can opt in if they want to do this. We will opt in to do this, and we will opt in. So we will start to share some of our revenue with student athletes across various sports. We'll work closely, obviously. President Cunningham, our new president, that's another topic we could talk about. She comes from Michigan, and I've had some great conversations with her, and she understands athletics and Big Ten athletics, and excited to have her on board. But I've had conversations with President Cunningham. We'll have conversations with our Board of Regents. So as institutions, I think this is going to be an interesting football season because A, we're playing games, but B, everybody's got to figure out how this new model is going to work starting next year. As you know, you're recruiting student athletes in the fall. You sign them in November for next season. Right. So the pace is going to pick up here rather quickly. So again, that $22 million, we're on the hook to find it, to generate it, to save it, you name it.
Figure out,
We got to figure out how we're going to disperse that money to the programs, what student athletes will get that money, how to allocate that money, those type of things. So those are the things we're working our way through right now. And it's a lot of work, but it's interesting to see, and we've tried to work very, very hard with all of our coaches to be transparent, to be open with them. Here's what we're looking at. Here's what we're trying to do. But those are the two. You'll hear the $2.8 billion for the back settlement. Yeah. That's to solve to sell those lawsuits, and then the revenue share moving forward is at $21.5-22 million. I think there's an escalator, 4% escalator each year, and that's what we'll have moving forward for Minnesota and all Big Ten schools.
So that money, it's up to the school to determine, Michigan could spend it on athletes different than Minnesota?
Yes. You could, for example, Mike, if you're the best quarterback in America and a school wants to give you $22 million, I can give you $22 million. Gotcha. Or if I want to spread it out across multiple sports and multiple student athletes, we can spread it out that way. So the schools have the discretion to determine what they're going to do. I think if you take
is this exempt from Title IX then? Because that could become an issue or no?
Yeah, well, there's obviously still conversations with Title IX and how you distribute the money, what it looks like, and those type of things. But I think if you look at it, and I've been very public about this. Football generates 90% of our revenue.
Right.
So you can imagine football is going to be a sport that has some revenue share, right? Men's basketball, men's hockey are other two revenue generating sports. Women's basketball, volleyball, those are sports that do really well for us and those type of things. And then how can we be strategic with with a softball program that's gone to the College World Series? How can we be strategic with the gymnastics program that had, what do we have, 3 or 2 straight top 10 finishes or top 8 finishes in the country? Jenny Hansen's done a wonderful job. So schools have to figure out how we're going to allocate that money. But to answer your original question, if I wanted to give you $22 million as a starting quarterback or the starting point guard.
How about just as the radio guy?
We can negotiate that off air. I like that, yeah.
Because I do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd volunteer.
Yeah.
No, so
I can hand you a piece of paper right now. You just signed that thing.
Yeah, thank you. I did see a couple, maybe early last week, Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State coach, and I'm surprised. One of the things that took traction with, I don't know if you saw his comments, was, we're done negotiating, the season has started, all that stuff, which is fine. And that's what got most of the attention. And then a day or two later, they came out with Q codes on the back of the helmet for fans to apparently on their TV somehow get on there to donate money to the NIL. But the thing he said that didn't take traction in that comment that I thought was interesting was he said, what we have to figure out is how to divide $21 million amongst 105 players. Which indicated to me either he's pushing publicly, I want it all, or they've already determined that football is the only sport to get that. So I was curious if that indeed is possible. I'm not suggesting, I don't know what Oklahoma State's going to do, but I thought no one mentioned that part of it. He said, we got to figure out how to divvy up $21 million for 105 players. So,
and again, I don't know what Chad's the AD down in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I don't know what Chad's going to do down there. But again, schools have the flexibility to allocate that money. It is an available cap, so you don't have to spend up to $22 million. But again, you do have that discretion, so you can't go over $22 million, but you can if you want to get up to $22 million. Yeah. And we feel like at Minnesota to be competitive in the Big Ten, we got to get to that mark because our peers are going to get to that mark. So that's what we're striving to do. We're trying to build that model right now. But there's no doubt in what I talk about, and JT Brewitt, JT in the Lindell Academic Center, former Gopher baseball player here, played with the Twins. I mean, just a wonderful person. And he and our Lindell academic staff do such a great job with our student athletes, and the highest grade point average we ever had, highest graduation rate. I honestly feel what sets Minnesota apart is that, yes, we're going to participate in revenue share, but we talk all the time about this value-based decisions, and we're not transactional, we're transformational. Where college athletics, I feel, is starting to get very transactional. We feel like we need to continue to be transformational, and that's what we try to continue to focus on as we get in this new rev share model. But JT gets a lot of credit for that because we still focus on the academic side.
For sure, it's like that complete package. You're right. There's kind of a mercenary sense with some schools that you're just going to go get 5 mercenaries that will come in for big money, and it might work. And that's not to say the Gophers couldn't go out and pay somebody on a given year, a goalie or a quarterback or what have you, if they need it, fine. But there is a different sense, maybe a different, more altruistic goal here. That $21 million is still separate from Dinkytown athletes. Correct. So there's still a collective. Mm-hmm. So what is the challenge now for you and Dusty, who's who oversees the fundraising and development part of it, okay, yes, we want our boosters and fans to take care of the NIL, but we also have facilities that we're still raising money on. We have scholarships we'd like to fund, all that stuff. How do you balance that tightrope, so to speak? Yeah,
well, I go back to a saying I heard probably 25 years ago that money's not the most important thing in college athletics, but it's right up there with oxygen, right? We all need it. Yes. Like we all need it. And thank you for laughing every time I say that. I do appreciate it. I love it. But again, Dusty and our Golden Gopher Fund have done a wonderful job. Our donors and our fans have been so great to us, Mike. And I tell people all the time, NIL fundraising, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And Derek and Rob and Jeremiah Carter, and Derek and Rob with Dinkytown Athletes, Jeremiah Carter, our former compliance director, now oversees our NIL initiatives with our department. They've done such a good job of building up Dinkytown Athletes, our memberships that fans are members of. You've talked about it. Others have talked about it. But again, NIL is still going to exist in this new world. NIL is still a part of recruiting. I'm very proud that at Minnesota, you and I were talking before we went on the air that, if a student athlete signs with Dinkytown Athletes, they've honored every payment. That's not happening everywhere.
I was surprised when you said that. So there are some athletes at certain schools.
There's schools where athletes have sat out. There's, from practice that they've raised some red flags. But our kids will tell you that if they have a deal with Dinkytown Athletes, we've been paid. Our kids are doing true NIL. They're doing work for that. It's not a, hey, here's a check, thanks for being here. They're doing work for that. They're doing those type of things, which is awesome. And you mentioned Affinity Plus earlier. A shout out to Affinity Plus. Mar Braun Billboard, which is phenomenal. And I had a chance to meet their leadership team and just their commitment to our program, obviously through the Gopher Sports Properties, but also through Dingytown Athletes. That makes all the difference in the world. And so as we move forward in this new world, we're going to have to try to get our arms around NIL because it has become pay for play at some institutions, not at Minnesota. It needs to be true NIL, right? And not pay for play. And so, again, I give Jeremiah, Rob, and Derek a lot of credit in how they've done it. And again, but we still need to continue to raise money for everything you outlined. And again, we're just so grateful for our donors, our fans, the people who, when you ask for $30, you can come to a big time football game between Minnesota, North Carolina, ACC, Big Ten, national TV. That's revenue that we need. That's revenue that helps us with facilities, with scholarships, with donate. It's such a big part of what we do.
So here's a hard question. You mentioned it's not pay for play here. If you're not pay for play and you're doing it the way you want to do it, the way that I think it was designed to do, can you go win championships? And not just football, I'm talking as a department overall. Is that going to be hard? Is it easier? What can you sell in order to get the people you need in place?
Yeah, well, I think in today's world, August 27th, I think today, in today's world, cash is king, right? And it's the wild, wild west. A year from now, when we get the available cap in place, so now, again, if institutions have $22 million to spend, we're going to have to disclose how that money's spent, who's getting that money. So now where you have agents and others saying, hey, Mike Grimm can come to this school, we're going to give him $20,000, or Mike Grimm can go to this other Big Ten school, we're going to give him $25,000. You have no idea what's true and what's not true. Now we'll have transparency. So I think with the revenue share that will start 12 months from now, I think that creates an even playing field for everybody. So Minnesota has the same cap Ohio State has. Minnesota has the same cap that Michigan had, right? There's not that discrepancy in terms of what they can provide, what we can't provide, those type of things. So I do think it's going to create more balance. And then to take it a step deeper, and I don't mean to, we need Keegan here because he's the cerebral one, but to take it a step further, our media revenue in the Big Ten and the SEC is crazy. I mean, we get significant dollars, almost double what our peers in the ACC and the Big 12 get. So when you hear Mark Coyle stressed out about trying to come up with $22 million, think about our friends in the Big 12. Where their budgets are nearly what our budgets are, and they're getting $30 million less than we're getting in TV, right? So think about the pressure it creates on them. So again, it's great that Minnesota's in the Big Ten. It's great that we're a legacy member in the Big Ten, and we need to continue to invest in our programs to continue to excel at the highest level.
Right. And don't you think, too, there is something to be said there, if you build it the right way, the way PJ Fleck has talked about culture, that you can raise the level of play higher than maybe what the talent indicates it should be. And there are times, we see it all the time, I won't name any schools, but there are programs that, hey, we're going to pay this guy, and they all come in, I use that term mercenaries, or just hired to play. There's not a meshing point there, and they underachieve. So there's a point at which you can get greater returns if you do it that way.
Yeah, and I people can't see you and I right now, but you and I make eye contact. We know exactly what program you're talking about. It doesn't always end well, right? And so again, I give our coaches a lot of credit. Ben, Dawn, PJ, Bob. Right now, NIL has really impacted their world, and I give them a lot of credit because we talk all the time. And again, it's what makes Minnesota different and unique is that A, doing it right here matters, and B, when you recruit a young woman or a young man to come to Minnesota, they have to compete academically, athletically, and socially. We talk about that all the time, and NIL has changed that, but it hasn't changed at Minnesota. So we can talk to kids and we can tell them about the NIL opportunities here. When I meet with recruits, we talk about the NIL opportunities here. We talk about how every kid who signed with them gets paid. There's not false promises. Our word is our word. And oh, by the way, you're going to have the highest grade point average you ever had. Competitively, we're doing things we've never done in a long, long time. And again, we're doing it the right way, and I feel really good about where we're at right now as a program.
Last one for you, another hard question, because I know in terms of trying to figure out where money goes and how to do things, the non-revenue sports, what's the concern level there that they can all continue? Because you want to offer that full package and array of traditional Big Ten opportunities.
Yeah, well, you know, the what I love about Minnesota, if you go back and watch my opening press conference, I talked about what I love about Minnesota Minnesota is that we have a broad-based program. And I made the comment that if a young woman or a young man has Minnesota written across their chest, we're going to support them 100%. So when you talk about this new world with revenue sharing, if Minnesota is not paying their track team in revenue share, I promise you Ohio State's not paying their track team in revenue share. Does that make sense? I think the schools will pay, I think everybody agrees on football, basketball, women's basketball, volleyball. What's your third or fourth sport look like? Obviously, men's hockey is a big deal at Minnesota, right? And we feel like we can compete nationally at a high level in that sport. Well, it might be soccer at Indiana, men's soccer. They're an elite soccer program. Or it might be lacrosse at Maryland, right? So that third sport, wrestling for Penn State. There's just different – people are going to have to make some hard decisions. Keep in mind, as you add more sports, that's less money you can give to some of the, again, football generates 90% of our revenue. That's a big part of our revenue, right?
No
and
question.
We need football to be successful. We need people to buy tickets to come to our games, those type of things. So again, schools are going to have to be very strategic. They're going to have to make very smart decisions, long-term decisions. And you heard me before, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I feel like we've been running a steady marathon. You see schools sprint out, the missionary, they run over, hey, we're going to get Mike Grimm, this person, they come in, it's self-implodes, they got to start all over again.
Yep.
We haven't had to do that here. We've been able to kind of be consistent, but obviously we want to take that next step and compete at a high level.
All right. Always great to see you. It's exciting times here Thursday night, the football opener. Next week, we've got the M Club Hall of Fame with some great former athletes, former coaches, former administrators all getting ready to go, and it's time.
It's time. Here we go. We always appreciate you, Mike, and thanks for everything you do for our program. You're one of the unsung heroes. I don't think people realize how hard. You and I were talking to you about the 275 full-time staff, and you're part of our family. I don't think people realize how hard you work, but I hope you know how much we appreciate you, what you do. A huge advocate for our program, and it means a lot to us.
Well,
so thank you.
It's kind of you to say that, and we appreciate it. Always great to catch up. There he is, Mark Coyle, episode 136. My thanks to Golden Gopher Athletic Director Mark Coyle, who gave us so much insight into the ever-changing landscape of college sports, as well as a preview of the college football season and more. Episode 136 is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. We're also partnered with Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, a locally member-owned full-service financial invested in you. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Cub is a proud supporter of Gopher Athletics for over 20 years and a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm. Cub, bigger savings on the items you love. Of course, this weekend, Labor Day, get all your grilling goods from Cub. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please right now, click the subscribe button to the Go Gopher Podcast. It's free to subscribe and free to listen at any time. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and listen as well. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please give us some positive feedback on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.
When we say that Cub milk is the freshest in town, we mean it. Less than 48 hours from farm to store fresh. We guarantee 7 days or more of freshness. It all starts with local dairy farmers who take great care in making sure all the cows are happy and healthy. We support local farm families 365 days a year. And that makes our milk even more delicious. So you always get the freshest milk and the biggest smiles.